During this time of limited travel, increased isolation, and stressful media, we want to make the most of this time right here at home.
Let us be your escape from life's monotony. Allow yourself to indulge in your wildest travel fantasies and discover the constant beauty of this ever-changing world with the Wanderlusting Wives podcast. On today's episode, we're going to escape to the place where dreams come true, Disney World.
Welcome to the Wanderlusting Wives podcast. We're your navigators, Allison
And Regan.
And on today's episode, we're going to be highlighting all things Disney, and Regan is going to be our special guest for today. But before we get started, we have to, of course, start with a Disney icebreaker. So, Regan, if you could be a Disney character, who would you be? And which Disney sidekick would you choose to have?
All right, so my answer is going to be a little controversial because I'm going to movie mix, but we're just going to go with it. I would choose to be Meg from Hercules because she's awesome. She is like the epitome of strong female lead. I love her. And she's sassy. She gets a great song. And then I would pair her with Mushu from Mulan, who is also sassy, but who is a little dragon. And I just think he'd be so fun to have along for the road. So that would be my answer. But Allie, what about you?
Well, you really went really far back into the Disney archives for those ones. I'm bringing us back to the 21st century, okay? So I chose Moana. I mean, who wouldn't want to be an island princess? And then my sidekick would be Hee the chicken because it's just the most out there character ever and also kind of cute at the same time. So yeah, I think it'd just be fun to be wandering around the island. Well, she didn't really always wander, but go on adventures with a chicken and just be sailing away. And yeah, it just sounds like quite the adventure. Okay, so like I said, Regan is going to be our special guest for today, talking all things Disney. So a little bit about Regan. She currently lives in Rochester, New York, with her husband Nolan and her adorable mini golden doodle Remy. As you can probably assume by this episode, yes, he's named after Ratatouille. I'm guessing you're probably noticing a pattern here. And she also has a Russian blue kitty, Indy, and Indy is named after the Indianapolis Colts. Regan went to Nazareth College of Rochester and majored in musical theater and minored in dance. And Regan is currently the communications coordinator at Quad Prep, and that is a school in New York City, but she works remotely in Rochester. So, pretty cool gig. And then some fun facts about Regan. She has been to Disney World 20 times and Disneyland 3 times. So, it's safe to say we have the Disney expert on our hands today. So, welcome, Regan. So, let's just jump in here with our first question. What resorts have you stayed at?
So I have stayed at Pop Century, all three of the All-Star resorts. So that's music, movies, and sports. I've stayed at Port Orleans Riverside and I've stayed at Coronado Springs. Those are like the four that I can remember. So, but also most recently I stayed at Pop Century, which just opened the Skyliner, which is a new form of transportation in Disney. And I would highly recommend just jumping right in with tips here. If you're able to stay on the Skyliner resorts, there's a Riviera, there's the Caribbean, Pop Century, Art of Animation. I would highly recommend doing that because it has quite the advantage for if you need to get to a park early in the morning and you want to beat those crowds, it's way faster than taking the bus. It's more reliable than the bus, I would say also. And it's just really fun. Like sometimes staying on the Skyliner resort, I'd be back to the hotel because I wouldn't want to go back to the park later at night because I'm exhausted. But I'm like, I'm not quite ready to go to sleep. So I'm going to take a Skyliner ride. And it's just relaxing. It's beautiful. All of the little like vehicles are themed to different movies. So it's really fun. I highly recommend being on a Skyliner resort if at all possible.
Yeah, that sounds great. I would like a nice little Skyliner ride in the in the night and take a break from all the craziness that can ensue at Disney. But have you at all stayed off property, or would you maybe recommend staying on property opposed to staying off property?
So I have stayed off property, and in this day and age, when so many of the perks of staying on property are disappearing. So, for instance, Magical Express was free transportation from the Orlando airport to your Disney hotel. They have now gotten rid of that. So now you have to pay for that transportation from the airport to your hotel. So that's a perk that disappeared. Pretty much the only perk that I can think of that's reasonable at this point for staying on site is that you get 30 minutes early entry into the parks. And 30 minutes doesn't sound like a lot, but that gives you a huge advantage over the giant crowds that might be following at the gate. But it also kind of depends on the size of your family too. So my family, my full family is 8 adults plus now 5 kids. So it gets really expensive to stay on property, and you kind of have to weigh those benefits then of like, okay, what am I getting for staying on the property versus how much could I save staying off property? So based on the size of your family, you really want to weigh those. But I will say that those advantages of staying on site, besides being in the Disney bubble, which is magical and wonderful, and I love it, I would say you definitely have to weigh that. But off property these days might be the better bet.
And would you say there's more like hotels or Airbnbs for staying off property? Or is it kind of like half and half? What would probably be like the better choice in your opinion?
Yeah, so I would say, so yes, there are hotels, yes, there are Airbnbs. There are also lots of like vacation home rentals that are outside of Airbnb. So there's a lot of like condo and townhouse communities that are right close to Disney that pretty much primarily are vacation rentals for the Disney parks. There are some hotels that you can get right close to Disney Springs, which is the shopping and dining area of Disney, that actually include transportation to and from the parks. So those are also your options too, that you can try to find a hotel in the area. There are Airbnbs, but then you will have to pay for parking at the parks. That's the one thing, is that parking is pretty expensive. I think it's $25 a day. But again, you might be saving a lot of money by staying off property. So based on the size of your family, weigh those numbers and see what works best for you.
So if you only have a couple of days, what parks should you make sure you hit up, or can you do all four parks in one day?
Yeah. So first of all, yes, you can do all 4 parks in one day. I have done it at least twice. It's not like what you'd want to do on your first Disney trip by any means, but it is doable. And if you are going to do it, I would recommend starting in Animal Kingdom, then going to Magic Kingdom, then to Hollywood Studios, and then to Epcot, because Epcot tends to be open latest and Animal Kingdom tends to be open earliest. So you really make the most of your full day. But if you're only going to be there for a couple of days, if it's your first trip to Disney, you 100% must go to Magic Kingdom, because it's the classic Disney park, like you get the castle, there's all of these nostalgic rides. It's true Disney at its core. So I would not miss Magic Kingdom. I mean, even now I've been 20 times, and that's like the park that I want to make sure I go to. But if you are not so much into Disney as much as you are into rides, I would say you must go to Hollywood Studios, because Hollywood Studios at this point in time, I would say, has the highest concentration of excellent rides. You have thrill rides, you have family rides, you have shows, you have a great fireworks show that's going to be reopening this spring. So those would be my top two parks for making the most of your time. But if you do have more time, Animal Kingdom, I would say should be like your third choice. That has not a huge concentration of rides, which is why I would say it's lower on that list if you only have a short amount of time. It has amazing rides, and it is my favorite park, that being said. But if you have limited time, I would maybe go to the other ones first to make the most of it. Epcot at this point in time doesn't have a lot of rides open. More are coming. For instance, Cosmic Rewind, the Guardians of the Galaxy roller coaster, which I am so excited for. It's opening Memorial Day weekend this year. So I would rank them. Magic Kingdom, Hollywood Studios, Animal Kingdom, Epcot.
Sounds good. I'm ready to hit the road and go to Disney already. We're just starting this. Okay, so since you've been 20 times, well, 23 if we're counting both parks, what would you say the best time of the year is to go to Disney?
What I would say is the best time to go would be the end of October through the beginning of November. There tend to be somewhat more limited crowds. Post pandemic, Disney has been kind of high crowds all the time just because of pent up demand for travel. But during that time, on November 1st, traditionally, overnight, Disney World changes from their fall decor and all of their pumpkins and everything like that. Overnight changes to all of their Christmas and holiday decor, which is really magical. And so if you're able to be there for that flip, that's so cool to catch. And then you also kind of make the most of getting both seasons. And the weather is really fantastic at that time of year.
Awesome. So, speaking of crowds, do you have any tips for beating the crowds besides going at that specific time of year? Like, what if we have to go during the summer? Any tips for beating the crowds?
Absolutely. And this could honestly be a whole episode of its own because there's such strategy when it comes to Disney these days, just because of how many people are constantly there. So, really, what you want to look at is do your research, first of all, ahead of time. Know what parks you're going to go to on every day. Kind of make a plan to get there in the morning so that you're making the most of your day. You're going to have the lowest waits in the morning and in the evening. In the afternoon is kind of going to be when most families are there. And it's just going to be really high wait times. You might want to go back to your hotel, take a nap, swim in the pool, get a lunch somewhere. So you're going to want to be there in the morning and in the evening. That's step one, I would say. And if you're only there for a short amount of time, like say you're there for a 4-day trip and you're only doing each park once, I would honestly plan to get there at least 30 minutes before rope drop, which is the park opening, because sometimes the park does open earlier and you're able to get to the front of those lines a little faster. I would also maybe, if you've been there before, but you haven't quite locked down the Disney strategy, make note of when the park opens, which way people go. For instance, I will use Animal Kingdom as an example. Everyone goes to Flight of Passage, which is the amazing ride that you cannot miss in Pandora, which is the Avatar land. So everyone goes there, but no one goes to the back of the park to the safari. So you really want to make note of where people go. And when they zig, you zag, you go the other way and you find something to do and then make your way back over the course of the day when waits might be a little shorter.
No, those are some really great tips, but I'm worried because I'm getting there really early and I know I'm going to be hungry and I like some snacks. So, what are some must do foods and restaurants for these really long days that we might have at Disney?
Definitely. Disney is not only a theme park anymore, it is a food destination. The food at Disney has really stepped up its game, especially in the past 10 years. And it's so good. I have so many favorites at this point. But what I would recommend if you're looking for a meal, Satuli Canteen, which is in Pandora and Animal Kingdom, has great food, very high quality. It's one of the newer places, and it's just counter service too. So it's not like you have to sit down and be waited on. You can also do mobile ordering. For a lot of different places, they have that now. So it's not like you have to wait in line. You can place your order on the app and go and pick it up. Some other restaurants, if you're looking for more of a sit down, I would recommend Boma, which is at the Animal Kingdom Lodge. Their brunch is fantastic, but also I remember dinner being very good as well. If you're looking for kind of more of an experience, a fun experience, Sci-Fi Diner in Hollywood Studios is really cool. It's unlike anything I've ever done. The food is nothing spectacular, but what's really cool is that you go into this huge room and suddenly you're transported to a 50s style drive-in theater. You have this huge screen in front of you and you all sit in a different car and it's dark. Super, super cool. And I bet like kids would love it. But if you're looking for possibly the hidden gem restaurant of Disney, go to Sebastian's Bistro at the Caribbean. That's a resort on the Skyliner, so you get to take their Skyliner as well. Their food is so good. It's all you can eat family style. And there's Caribbean flair. There's, oh my gosh, there was like a pineapple coconut bread pudding for dessert that was to die for. The food was just so good. But if you're in the park and you're just looking for a snack, I would recommend at Satuli Canteen. Actually, there's a blueberry mousse that I can't go to the park and not get. It is just so good. Um, in Magic Kingdom, there's something called the Cheshire Cat Tail, which is like a little pastry filled with chocolate and drizzled with pink and purple to look like the Cheshire Cat at a Cheshire Cafe. Mickey pretzels are always a classic. They're overrated, but they're cute and they're fun. Dole Whip of any kind is delicious. And then if you happen to be there at like during a festival in Epcot, they have multiple festivals throughout the year. There's the Flower and Garden Festival, there's Food and Wine, there's the Festival of Holidays, there's the Arts Festival. But if you're there during the Flower and Garden Festival, there's a berry tart at the Germany Pavilion that is possibly my favorite thing that I've ever had in Disney. It's so good. So there, those are some options. If you want more options, I have a million, but those would be the highlights to look at.
Yeah, and what if maybe we're just balling out here. We're on vacation. We want to splurge a little bit on a meal. What do you have any recommendations for people who might want to spend a little bit more money?
Absolutely. So I would recommend probably going to California Grill, which you're at the top floor of the Contemporary Resort, which is right outside of Magic Kingdom. And if you're able to get a reservation around fireworks time, they have balconies to go out and watch the fireworks from. And it's just so magical. Like I'm getting chills thinking about it right now. It was the most romantic evening. Even saw a proposal happen right in front of us. Like it was just so romantic and so magical. Um, and the food was incredible. Oh my gosh, from appetizer through dessert to even the wine list, it was just so good. So if you're looking to splurge on a romantic or delicious evening, 100% go there and get yourself a view of the Magic Kingdom fireworks.
Awesome. And when I think of Disney, I usually think of kids running around, families. But sometimes, there you do see just couples going. So what's there to do for couples or adults who are interested in going to Disney and maybe they don't have kids or maybe they're just trying to get away from their kids. So what are some things that adults can do at Disney?
So yeah, especially over the past few years, Disney has become much more adult friendly too. I don't know why there's this stigma against adults going to Disney because especially in this day and age, it's so important to keep the kid inside of you so that you don't just completely unravel because you are adulting 100% of the time. Adults deserve to have fun too. And so I think that stigma is completely off and wrong, and we should debunk it, in other words. So Disney, though, does have a lot of options for adults. There are bars and drinks everywhere. Over the past year, between the past two times I've been, alcohol was suddenly everywhere. So yeah, you have those options. But if you are looking for a bar, try and get a reservation at Oga's Cantina in Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. They have the most fun cocktails. There's one called the Fuzzy Tauntaun that I got, and it has this like foam on top of it. They're really, really creative cocktails and really creatively presented. But the foam literally like made my lips tingle. I was laughing so hard. And I mean, it's supposed to. It's not like I had an allergic reaction or anything. I was laughing so hard. It was just a really fun experience and a really cool environment. So there's lots of bars, and especially at Disney Springs. Disney Springs is all they recently redone too to be named Disney Springs even, but shops and restaurants. So there's any number of options down at Disney Springs for you to get your night out on the town. There's live music a lot of places too, like all through Epcot. You can take an evening, which I have a few times, and drink your way around the world, eat your way around the world in Epcot with all the different countries. That's really a really fun way to spend a relaxing adult evening, is like no agenda. You just get some food, you get some drink, you sit down, and then you go to the next place. That's really fun. It's a really great way to spend an evening. There are spas at a few hotels if you're interested in that. Um, yeah, there's at the boardwalk, there's like some dance clubs. There's one called Jelly Rolls that has like dueling pianos. So there are definitely options for adults as well. It's not just for kids anymore.
So this sounds really great, but I'm not really a huge Disney movie fan as maybe you or some other people listening to this episode. So would someone like myself, watches an occasional Disney movie here and there, still enjoy going to the parks, or do I really have to be a Disney fanatic to really get a great experience out of this?
You don't have to be a huge Disney movies lover. I even consider myself to be a Disney parks fan. I'm a Disney fan, but primarily the parks. I do love Disney movies, but I'm not going to be at the front of the line at the box office when a new one comes out. There are even some classic Disney movies that I just haven't seen, and like, I'm not rushing to do that. So while I do enjoy them, I'm a parks person because there's something about going to the parks that's so incredibly immersive and magical. It's not your average theme park. You go, and I've literally said that there's something that they put in the air because I don't think about work the entire time I'm in Disney World. I don't think about work. I don't check my email. I don't talk about work. Like nothing that stresses me in normal life seems to make its way into Disney for me. That might be different if I had kids of my own that I'm dragging through the heat of Florida, but I would say no, you don't have to be a Disney movies lover to enjoy the magic and family and community and just fun of finding your inner kid.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of putting it. It's nice to just kind of escape those realities that we're facing outside of our Disney vacation. So, to wrap up this episode, would you like to highlight some of your favorite memories for us?
Oh, sure. Oh my gosh. This is so tough though. I have so many. But I will say that I'll tie my memories into maybe some additional things that I don't want you to miss if you're going to Disney also. Going to Pandora in Animal Kingdom at night is completely different than during the day. And I will never forget the first time I went and did that because bioluminescence is such a big part of the Avatar movie. And case in point, if you're asking about do you need to be a movies fan to go to the parks, I haven't seen Avatar. I'm not a huge Avatar fan. I love Pandora. I love the rides in that part of the park. And so if you go at night, everything is lit up with bioluminescence in different colors, and the structure of this place is just incredible. Anyways, the Imagineering, which is what they call Disney engineers, is incredible. And so to go there at night and for it to be all lit up in these beautiful colors, it's just jaw-droppingly gorgeous. So definitely that was one of my favorite memories. I love experiencing Disney World with first timers or people who haven't been there a lot. So like when I went to Disney with Allie a few years back, it was like so exciting for me because she hadn't been since she was a little kid. So like I was experiencing a lot of the stuff with her for the first time. I now have nieces and nephews that I do the same thing with. Like my niece and nephew got to go on Expedition Everest for the first time this past trip. And that was super exciting for me. Like to share something that I love so much with other people is super fun. In fact, one night I was like, okay, I know the park is going to close, but I really want to go on Space Mountain and it just be me and Nolan, my husband, have it be an auntie and uncle ride on Space Mountain. And we did. It was me and my niece and nephew and Nolan, and it was just the four of us, and it was super special. So it mostly comes down to the memories I make with family. And then Disney used to have an American Idol experience where you would get to go through the whole audition process and be cast and selected to perform in the show. And then people would vote in the audience and you'd go through hair and makeup. And I was selected to be on the show after my audition, and I sang Love Song by Sarah Bareilles. And that was just a really cool, unique experience and made me feel like a star for a day. So that was really cool. But truly, it does come down to the memories you make with family and whoever you're with.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Regan, for sharing about your experiences with Disney and all your expertise. But do not fret, to our listeners, we do have a part 2 coming out. So
Yeah.
there will be a lot more Disney action coming your way. Any final thoughts before we wrap this up, Regan?
I don't think so. Thanks,
All right.
everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the Wanderlusting Wives podcast. Come escape with us again next Tuesday morning. Give us a subscribe and a follow on all of our social media and wherever you listen to your podcasts. And until we chat next week, wander on.